Hey, how's it going, everyone? It is Drago. We're back with another chapter of Fairy Tail 100 Year Quest. Chapter 140, Rival Bond Alchemy. Cover page for this chapter has Lucy and Natsu on it. I think this cover is very fun with them being graffiti artists on it, and I very much like the outfit that Lucy's in. I don't know if the art that they have on the wall actually means anything, because it just kind of looks like scribbles to me. The most standout thing on this cover to me is the Lucy. I really like her outfit. We pick up our chapter with Natsu fighting Duke and Athena number 2. Natsu's not playing around. He immediately goes lightning fire dragon mode, and he hits Athena with a pretty hard gut punch, which sends her flying back pretty far, and then he follows it up with a lightning fire dragon's talon, which Athena starts to counter by using rogue shadows, which Natsu just does not care because he attacks her with a lightning fire dragon's fang, which leaves a pretty hardcore cut on Athena. And Duke seems to be quite a bit surprised that Natsu is using, lightning dragon slayer magic and not, just fire. But Athena starts to use Wendy's magic and she starts healing herself, which you would think that she shouldn't be able to do because Wendy can't do that to herself, so why should Athena be able to? With Natsu noticing that she's completely healed, he's like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to hit you with so much damage that you cannot heal. Which very much reminds me of All Might versus the first Nomu in the first season of My Hero Academia. So Natsu starts to power up a roar attack, and with that we cut over to Lucy and Gray, which Lucy is summoning Loki, which I love that Loki, the first thing he does is acknowledge Gray, oh, it's been a long time, Gray. And honestly, that's a detail you kind of forget about, that those two were friends for quite a while before, the start of Fairy Tail. Loki starts to use Regulus, and Gray follows up his attack with an Ice Geyser, which freezes Genai and Kotetsu, but they start to turn that ice into steel, and they send that steel flying back at Lucy, Gray, and Loki. So Lucy summons in Ares, and she uses a fluffy wool shield, which has all the steel just bounce straight off of it. So Genai and Kotetsu are finally realizing, oh hey, Lucy is actually kind of a threat, and we really underestimated her. And I love their response to it, Gray's yeah, I told ya. Too bad we don't have Happy with them, because Loki just straight up claims Lucy as his wife, and Ares calls her incredibly kind, and I love that they're all kind of hugging it out together. They look so cute together. But since Lucy and Gray are amassing quite a bit of friends, Genai and Kotetsu decide to summon in their own friend, and they call in Sai. And Genai and Kotetsu want Sai to seal away Lucy's power. So Sai starts doing his own alchemy, and he wants them to think of the weakest person you know. Very great that Lucy is with Gray, because he immediately knows what Sai's about to do, and Gray is trying to get Lucy to not screw herself by thinking of Happy or something. Because Gray wants Lucy to try and think of someone strong that she can change into, so, they have an advantage here. I don't know why Sai just straight up tries to help them by saying someone who's too strong, so strong you hate them. They can be strong just as long as you hate them. Sai, I really don't know why you're helping them out, because now you're going to have, strong opponents. Which that's quite a tough question for Lucy, because someone that's strong that she hates, because she doesn't really hate anyone. Honestly, kind of thought she was going to switch places with Minerva, because Minerva kind of did quite a bit of bad stuff to Lucy, and she's pretty strong. Because they have a thought bubble with them saying, if she switches with someone she hates, would they even be able to use their power because they hate them so much? I just feel like you'd have more of the learning curve of how to use that power, kind of similar to Gray switching with Juvia. So you get a little bit more of a breakdown of what alchemy can do, because, Genai and Kotetsu are well, why don't you just change her into a dog or something? And Sai responds with, it's not that simple. I need them to think of what they're going to change into, because he was able to turn them into gems, but they were thinking about gems at that current moment. Again, I don't really know why they're helping them, because, Gray hears this, he's like, oh, cool. If we just have to think about what we want to turn into, we can use that against them. And Gray wants, Lucy to try and turn into Mira, but for Lucy, she loves Mira, so that's not going to happen. And Gray's just screw it, you know what, I'm going to go attack him myself. And just as he starts to go attack him, Sai's like, hey, I'm using it on you too, buddy. The second Gray kind of realizes it, he turns into Natsu. And of course for Gray, it makes sense that the guy that he hates and who's also the strongest is Natsu. I love that he has this like existential crisis, like, oh my goodness, I'm Natsu now. Why did I have to turn into this loser? Which I find quite hilarious because you cut back over to Natsu about to do the roar attack and he turned into Gray, so he's not able to do that roar attack. So Natsu's complaining that his body's freezing now and that he can't use his fire, which did put Natsu in quite a tough spot because he was fighting two very strong opponents. But if there was anyone for him like to swap with, I feel like Gray was a pretty good call because, if he can somehow manage to use his Devil Slayer magic, he could pull this off. Which then we cut back to Lucy and Gray, which I love that Gray, the first thing he does is just strip Natsu, and you can see what Natsu's underwear looks like if you're really curious. Which you all know that Lucy's seen this before. Like, she acts surprised right here, but like, she's seen this. And this is when Gray points out like, well, yeah, Natsu is incredibly strong, but both of us switching, we're not gonna probably be able to use each other's magics at all because they're completely different. So Lucy starts to think over her options of like, okay, who's strong that I hate? And as she's thinking about it, she's like, well, there's not really anyone I particularly hate. But in her mind, there's one person that kind of keeps popping up, but she doesn't particularly hate them, but the two of them are rivals. And Lucy starts to think of this rival, and she starts turning into that person, and that person turns out to be Brandish. In Versailles, Genna and Kotetsu, they just think that she turned into another pretty lady, but they do not realize the power that they're about to go up against with Brandish. I absolutely love that Gray knows like how OP Brandish is, and like he has like a twinkle in his eye like, oh my goodness, we got this. And that is the end of our chapter. So my thoughts. I very much hope in the next chapter we get like a cut over to where Brandish was, and now that she's Lucy, like what's going on. I can almost most certainly say that no one could have predicted that Gray and Lucy were going to turn into Natsu and Brandish, and that was going to be our fight. Now the problem that Lucy and Gray have to deal with, though, is figuring out how to use Brandish's and Natsu's power. I feel like Natsu's power would be a lot more simpler. Brandish's might be quite a bit more complex because, she determines like sizes of things. I think it's going to be kind of fun just to see how Lucy and Gray act as these two, and especially if you get that crossover back to Brandish, like what she's doing as Lucy right now. So Lucy as Brandish right now, can she use Stardust? Because, Brandish wants to, take Aquarius's key, and she has some relation to celestial magic. So can Lucy still summon her keys as Brandish right now because she's technically still Lucy? Or even be able to use Stardust because Brandish would definitely have the magic power to be able to do it. Just a random idea there that, Brandish might be compatible with this. If not, Lucy still has an insanely strong magic if she can figure out how to use it, which I imagine she probably will. I really enjoyed this chapter. It was very, very fun. I like the little twists and turns that happened throughout it. I like the little moments like with Loki and Ares. I feel like I was one of the few people that was actually excited that Lucy and Gray were teaming up. The only problem was their opponents were kind of lame, but now that they're like, transferred to Natsu and Brandish, I'm very curious as to how this battle is going to go because I feel like they're going to whoop them. Leave your thoughts on this chapter in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and this is Drago signing out.